Hey everyone, welcome back to the Outcomes Rocket. So excited that you joined us again. Today I have the privilege of hosting Dr. Ed Glynn. He joined the leadership team of RhythmX AI as their Chief Clinical Officer. RhythmX AI, let me give you a little bit about them. They are a Gen AI native company with a precision care platform for doctors that Dr. Glynn's going to unpack for us. It's all about hyper-personalized care, right patient, right time. And Dr. Glynn, as the chief clinical officer there, his background is a board-certified family physician and informaticist, and he plans to leverage the unique experiences of the company's clinical experts with the power of AI to help us all in a big way. So, Dr. Glynn, such a pleasure to have you here on the podcast.
Thank you, Saul. I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Likewise. And look, I always like to start at the beginning, the why behind why leaders in this field do what they do. So help us understand your journey and tell us what inspires your work in the healthcare space.
Yeah, I think this is common to most everyone who's in the medical field. It is not simply a job. It is more of a mission that we usually enter in, especially those of us who have entered into direct patient care. And so if I look back on my history, I have a very kind of unique background, not unlike many clinicians. I actually looked in as a very young individual. I was not looking to being a doctor. I was actually looking to go into ministry and spent about 12 years of my life studying to be a brother and then a priest.
Wow.
And actually worked as a hospital chaplain in New York City in the early 90s. And that's when I saw suffering that was tremendous. This was when AIDS was just coming out. HIV was not a common word. And I saw that tremendous amount of suffering. And I also saw that I had the ability to academically do whatever I put my mind to. So that's when I decided to move from that type of human service to now direct patient care. And I was the first in my family to enter into medicine. There was no other doctors. And so it was a kind of a unique journey for me, going from Spanish major in New York City to the first time I looked through a microscope was after I had my bachelor degree and going back for pre-med courses.
That's wild.
Kind of as a non-traditional student. But it was a wonderful journey. And I think my background served me well. And so that's how I first entered into medicine. I've always been a geek. I've had the other side of me that I kept separate from my medical side. When I was in fifth grade, I received my first computer. It was a TI 99 4A, Texas Instruments, and began basic programming with that. My father was very instrumental in having me look into technology early. He was always an early adopter. He early adopted beta beta cassettes rather than VHS. I don't know. That's for those of you who remember that and you're aging yourselves. But and in fact, God bless him, Philip Glynn. He was a tremendous technology advancer. He passed away about a decade ago playing Xbox at age of 76.
Did he really?
He actually
Amazing.
did. So
Amazing.
That's how I actually had my technological background, my medical background, and then they all came together once I became a clinician.
That's great. Well, really appreciate you sharing that, Ed. It's awesome to just hear your commitment to the space. You didn't start. This wasn't even like a path, but it was that time when you were a chaplain at the hospital where you said, wow, this is a need. And you did it. And then you always had this like informaticist kind of geek in you. And now I think you're sort of like home with what you guys are doing here at the company. So why don't you break down what the AI revolution in primary care is here with RhythmX AI and the work that you guys are up to?
Absolutely. And I'll continue the story arc right into that. So, I I made a fundamental change way back in the day to go into medicine. And then as I went through my medical career and seeing patients, I naturally found myself engaged in healthcare operations and in healthcare informatics. And over time, realized that I had to make a decision because as a primary care clinician, your patients want to have access to you and only to you as their mentor and guide throughout their healthcare journey. And I was balancing too many of those aspects. So what I decided in 2012 was to combine all of my background skills into one area, and that would be directly in informatics. In 2012, I joined HCA to be their chief medical information officer for their ambulatory clinics, and eventually became their chief health information officer for all their ambulatory clinical care, and did that for about 12 years. And what I realized over that 12 years was that with the advent of artificial intelligence, we were on and are on a precipice of a new revolution in not just healthcare, but in many different industries. And again, I see the need to step out of what is very comfortable. I had a great job at a great company and had a very potential long-term a job there. But I realized that I am seeing this revolution, and as humans, we could miss this revolution. We could actually be bogged down by the complications of actually trying to bring artificial intelligence to the bedside of the patient. And so I wanted to step out and do what I could to assist to make sure that we don't miss this revolution and that we take care of it as soon as possible. Because to be honest, we are in dire straits in healthcare today. And so that's where I met RhythmX AI. RhythmX AI is a tremendous company with a great lineage. It came from the SAI group, which has now 4 great companies with it. The first one is Symphony AI, and then Concert AI.
Yeah, we interviewed the CEO of Concert, and that's what intrigued me about the approach you guys were taking. So for sure.
Absolutely. And to come from that rich real world application of artificial intelligence already in healthcare and already in retail space, to be able to join with those giants and step on their shoulders and now go into direct patient care, focusing in on primary care, that's where RhythmX AI comes in. And I do want to mention, Get Well Health. Get Well is now a 4th company in this arm. And that's another tremendous area of expansion for the SAI group. But with RhythmX AI, the focus is truly on assisting primary care clinicians with the most pressing problems in healthcare that we see are happening today. There's 4 basic areas here. There is the cognitive overload that every one of our primary care clinicians are facing. The healthcare is changing at such a rapid pace. It's much more rapid than any other generation in the past. In the past, there was a very methodical way of approaching studies and then doing identifying gold standards and then having those gold standards approved and changed by healthcare standards and bodies like American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, American College of Cardiology, American Academy of Family Practice. And then those guidelines would be approved and they would be passed through, and then the education would be changed. And all of that would take about 10 years to adopt something new. Well, now guidelines are changed more than annually. And standards of care are changing tremendously, especially in cardiology and primary care and all these areas. And so that's one major area that we see is a tremendous overload. The human capacity to learn and memorize and be able to regurgitate and follow memorized medicine has not increased in the past decade, nor in the past generation or generations. Our computer is amazing, but it's fixed. And so that's one of those areas. The second area is now access. Access is a universal problem across our patients, whether that's getting into for emergent care, for urgent care, for routine care. Actually getting in to see a clinician is really difficult. And then if you need to see a specialist, it's just as, if not even more difficult. Um, and then you combine the two of those, this cognitive overload, this access, which means as a primary care clinician, you're always overburdened with I have a full patient load, I've got to see, and guess what? Now I've got more that actually need to see me today. And that leads to this burnout. And we've seen many different angles of this burnout. It's the EHR's fault. It's the overload fault. It is everything. There is all these combined forces that are really making it difficult to be a clinician in 2024. And then finally, this fourth area is truly the data that we need, which is encompassed somewhat in the electronic health record, but somewhat outside of the electronic health record. And so trying to get all of this data to the patient, some of which is in private care clinics, some of it's in various disparate health systems, some of it's in billing systems, and putting that in front of this overburdened clinician and getting them to be able to really address these problems in a coherent way is difficult. So combining all of that, what we see at RhythmX AI is you have very intelligent, the highest trained clinicians that we've ever been able to produce as society. And then we have the idea of holistic healthcare outcomes, which is not just better A1Cs, not just better blood pressures. That's how most of healthcare is measured now. How well is this doctor compared to other doctors? Well, let's look at their blood pressure. It's not, blood pressure control doesn't equal a patient's ability to think clearly and communicate with their family. An A1C that's controlled doesn't equal a healthy lifestyle that they can adhere to for long term. So you've got this gap, clinicians and holistic outcomes, and we see that gap growing, and that's the gap that we're heading in to fill. And the main way we're approaching that is by creating this assistant that will intelligently serve up help to the clinicians as they're seeing patients, in between seeing patients. And it does that in 4 different ways. First off, it provides a summary. Who is this patient in front of me? And you can dive into that summary and get more details or step back just to get a broad view of the patient. It serves up key clinical indicators. So if you look at it, and these are dynamic, this is not a kind of an algorithm that's approached by every patient gets the same setup. No, it's looking deeply at this individual patient and seeing what their current and inferred diseases are and serving up the key clinical indicators to the clinician so they're aware of those. And then keeping those two in mind and standard evidence-based medicine with guidelines as well built into it as guardrails, we serve up recommendations to the clinicians. So you've got those 3 key aspects, but then the final aspect is this Copilot, which you can have a dialogue back and forth with about the patient's conditions, about the patient's medical record, et cetera. And so that's the beginning of this healthcare platform, is serving up these key intelligent recommendations and Copilot.
That's great. No, thank you for that, Dr. Glynn. It's a problem, right? I mean, clinicians are burned out. We've got awesome resources in the market now around the note taking, being able to spend time with more time with patients, less time on the EMR. And now you're offering up an entirely new opportunity where clinicians can actually get some cognitive relief, and an opportunity to work with this intelligence platform to take the next best actions. And I love that you focused on Copilot, because a lot of these technologies are still not all the way there. They depend on the physician to make the choice.
I think that's a key point, and it's a key ingredient to our secret sauce. Is really, we don't see this as, hey, we're building a bridge to your AI doctor of the future. We see that with holistic healthcare outcomes, the true idea of health, it requires a human individual with artificial intelligence and a patient combined together. The 3 of those together, that is our platform. And you can't remove any of those 3 aspects to have our platform. You have to have all 3. So we'll always keep at the front and center real world clinicians. Our clinicians, we have clinicians that are working with us as we enhance and build this platform out at every level. Every level from building into our guardrails to understanding our engineering with artificial intelligence to our applications at the top. We're always including real world clinicians. When I say real world clinicians, it's unlike myself, who has now moved out of direct patient care.
Practice.
These are individuals who are on a daily basis seeing patients in their office, and at night and weekends are working with us to make this platform, because they're energized. They see the future that this revolution could create in instilling new confidence. A lot of times when a clinician walks in, many times they make bare minimal changes, or they automatically refer to a specialist simply because of the cognitive overload and the fear of not knowing exactly what I could do for this patient in this time. And honestly, the system is just overloaded with that type of care. It can't move forward. So these real world clinicians working with us are very excited to have that new confidence again in remembering, yep, I just needed that little reminder. Yeah, I knew that was in the guidelines, but I didn't see how it applied to this patient and in this hyper-personalized way. And they move forward to care for their patients in this with new confidence. And actually, as you said, with that freedom of being burdened by trying to memorize everything.
Totally. I love it. Yeah, there's no need to memorize everything. We have
Exactly.
tools, and we have the opportunity to leverage technologies like these, Ed. So really appreciate you highlighting the problem, the solution. And so now how do we move forward, right? Like, we have these opportunities. What's the biggest obstacles you're seeing out there for adoption of these types of systems?
So I think the biggest problem was when electronic health records, and I started very early on and was a true believer in electronic health records, still am, but a revolution is coming, thank goodness. We are still in the era of, should we have a V6 or a V8 engine in this EHR, rather than looking at, should each tire have its own independent electric engine? We're in the rudimentary stages of continue to really understand how to create and facilitate healthcare delivery with technology. And I'm looking forward to this revolution that's going to happen. Because right now, what we really focused on was assuring that we had enough information in electronic health record to properly bill for the patient. And hidden amongst these billing requirements and these regulatory requirements and these secondary outcomes that we focused on. When I say secondary outcomes, I mean, did the patient have an A1C that was controlled, rather than does the patient experience a holistic sense of physical, emotional, and social health? Mm-hmm. So as we're moving forward here, what I really found that the biggest difficulty was getting the information in front of the clinician and in front of the platform. So we have information that are across disparate health systems, which are across disparate electronic health records. And even though we've begun to approach this with ideas of commonwealth and care quality, getting that information all together in a readable format for a platform to be able to serve up that information has been the biggest challenge, and much more challenging than it should be. And so I'm looking forward to artificial intelligence actually helping us more in these standards to assure that we can put the data together in consumable ways for these platforms to really help us revolutionize healthcare. So I think the biggest setback right now is getting that information. It's vast and it's disparate and it's all over the place. And so pulling that together and including a very key aspect, which we still don't do a good enough job with, and that's the patient's information that's in their head. Mm-hmm. What are their expectations? What's their biggest fear? When they come to the doctor, what are they afraid to mention? What is inside of them that perhaps needs to have the ability to come out when they walk into that room? And unfortunately, a lot of times they walk into that room and the clinician has a prepared way. You have diabetes, hypertension, depression, low back pain, and we are going to address those because I have these secondary measures that are against me. But it perhaps doesn't include the idea of what is health to this patient. So I'm really looking forward to getting all that information, taking that cognitive burden off the clinician so that they can sit down and really refocus on that relationship and developing together what the idea of health is for this patient.
Love that. Thank you for that, Dr. Glynn. And look, one last question here. Is this available for use today? Is this something that somebody can call you? They listen to our podcast and they're like, hey, wait a minute. I'd like to open this up a little bit and see if I could use this. Is it available?
So right now we have two customers who are our partners. They are our first lighthouse partners, Centera Health System and Presbyterian Health System in New Mexico. Both of those healthcare systems have been instrumental in helping us. We are now very busy with our next and final few lighthouse customers, and individuals who are interested in reaching out to us can certainly reach out to us at RhythmX AI, and they can reach out to myself as well. We are always looking and discussing with many different customers. And again, what we're creating here is not simply a plug and play application as much as this is the platform that begins in primary care and focuses on that hyper personalized care for that patient. But we have great ideas of where this is going to go in the future.
I love it. No, this is fantastic, Dr. Glynn. I imagine opportunities in referrals to specialty care, prior authorization, et cetera. And primary care is the beginning. So I think
absolutely
amazing.
That is the hyper focus.
Well, this is great. Folks, take advantage of our time today with Dr. Ed Glynn. He is just an extraordinary individual. And again, as a reminder, Chief Clinical Officer at the company. You're going to want to make sure you check out him. You're going to want to make sure you check out RhythmX AI and all the work that they're up to. Check out the show notes for ways to get in touch with him and the company. Dr. Glynn, really appreciate you being with us.
Thank you, Saul. I look forward to our next conversation.
Looking forward to it. Take care.